Hi everybody, this is Waffennacht, and I'm bringing to you the second half, essentially, of my mainstream Warden. This will be the no CPBG video, much longer, more in depth, so I will go through the sets and the food, etc. So for the sets, I'm using 2 Zaan, Malacath, Winterborn, 2 jewelry, 1 armor, and front bar weapon, Vateshran Lightning backbar, Trainee, Ulfnor's Favor times 3. The traits are Divine is preferred, then well-fitted or impenetrable. The jewelry traits are 3 infused with spell damage glyph and 2 Tri Regen glyphs. All health enchantments. I am using 5 heavy and 2 light. My helm is light and the Winterborn piece is light. The reason why I am going this way with Ulfnor's Favor instead of something like Potentates or any of those kind of 3-set willpower sets is because I want heavy armor, and in order to use Winterborn and heavy armor I have to use the jewelry slots for Winterborn. All attributes are in Magicka and all health enchantments again. I am using Bewitched Sugar Skulls with the Atronach Mundus. The race is Nord. It's very useful for a Nord with the additional health, resistance, and ultimate gain. The skills are Bird of Prey, Deep Fissure, Fletcher Infection, Arctic Blast, Crushing Shock with the ultimate Eternal Guardian. The back bar is Ice Fortress, Betty Netch, Elemental Drain, Spiked Bone Shield, Race Against Time. Again, you can go through the video and specifically see everything that I just listed. The reason why Bird of Prey and Fletcher Infection is for the passive passive damage increase. I do like Major Expedition, and just the Fletcher Infection won't be dealing a whole lot of damage on its own, but it does increase the damage that opponent is taking by 5%, and that's the main use. I use Crushing Shock to proc Winterborn on command and at a distance and at a range. To me, that is much better than Crimson Twilight, as you have to be in melee range, even though Crimson Twilight gives you an easier access to heavy armor and slightly better healing. It's just not nearly as good when your opponent decides to try to run away, and that's where I like to use Winterborn more, is when your opponent's trying to run away. And here's some clips. Right off the bat, you see I'm facing down another health build. They have about 40,000 health, and using that set that blocks and returns health. So this is where I decide to focus on the newer opponent who just showed up, because they're going to be the ones that's able to deal damage as opposed to the other health-based one that was not dealing damage. And you just go to start whittling them down. The bear is very constant damage. Helps you drain their stats, resources, like when they're blocking. Same with Arctic. They don't do a whole lot of damage. Same with Fletcher, but they do add up. And eventually the procs will just overwhelm them. And there's the Guardian killing them. Unfortunately for this guy, they just respawned, so now he's going to come back at me. He's going to do a bit better this time. He's smart enough to block Zaan, and the ability here while using block heals, clearly. It's probably just not going to be enough. It's a health-based proc build, so it's going to be a better advantage over a normal damage-based build as you just saw me face down. I like to keep some bigger clips in here so you can see more of what I'm actually doing and how long a battle is. I don't seem like I'm cutting out all the bad stuff. For example, that Winterborn proc just deals massive burst damage. I think it's one of the only sets, I think it is the only Magicka set for sure, that proc base that you can use with Malacath and still have burst damage instead of damage over time like Icy. I left this bit in here, even though not much is going on, because you can see the full clip of what's going, like how one of these things kind of sets up. With this build, you get a real sense of invulnerability, so you just end up charging groups of enemies, even though they know you're there. It's probably the worst way to start an attack, face someone down, is just to run right at them, like this guy's doing here. But you do end up feeling invincible, and you unfortunately start just taking on tons of opponents at once, and yeah, that's how I typically die. Sometimes with this build I'll make a mistake, maybe try to cast something because I'm too confident in my heals, too confident in the shield to keep me from dying. Maybe too confident Arctic. Let's see, this guy, he actually backs off and goes somewhere else. Much better play than trying to just run at me like those last 3 guys did. I find a lot of times that allies are both a blessing and a curse, because I show up with an ally and I figured that both of us are going to take some people out, and they just either die or run away, and I'm just left by myself. In this case, clearly not the outcome, but just something I wanted to mention. I'm also trying to leave more of the ending clips where you can see the ending of the match for how the build does. That way you get a complete feel of how these builds will do. Just a quick clip against a DK, a really good DK, mind you. This guy's a decent, solid player. You'll see him in a different clip later. See, this is where you get that kind of overconfidence, because there's 3 enemies, 4 enemies there, and you're just gonna keep on heading in there. Though with that kind of health and the Bone Shield and Arctic, you do have a chance, especially if the players aren't the best players in the world, of being able to survive it and maybe even kill 1 or 2 of them at the same time. A lot of people wonder about the Eternal Guardian, especially in, say, like this battleground match. I like the Mobile Los. It doesn't deal a ton of damage, but it does. I've seen Dragon Knights, for example, leap the bear and not me, and that's a huge boon. And plus the passive damage increase is always nice for like Winterborn and your other procs. Read on the forums, people have issues triggering the ultimate with the bear, and I have encountered this too. You'll see it sometimes where I just like kind of stare at a player. Most cases I'm trying to use that ultimate to get it to fire, and it's just one of the more difficult ultimates to fire for whatever reason. I'm not sure. Maybe it's range based, or maybe I need to be targeting the opponent longer. Not entirely sure, but it is more difficult than it should be, but it is useful all the same. Good example of me focusing on one player through all the chaos and just trying to bring them down. I will typically do that, find a weaker opponent and try to ignore the stronger ones and just focus them down. Another ending clip. Almost broke 1,000,000 damage in that one. I do make some builds, like for the other month or so, I only made 1 video because I had made a build and I just didn't feel like it was good enough to feature 4 people. Maybe I will later, but I feel like you guys deserve some of the best kind of builds that I can come up with, and if I am frustrated with it, or if I feel like it may be too gimmicky, I'm just not going to bring it to you. And well, this clip here is more showing someone using Mist Form. A lot of people complain about Mist Form on the forums. It is a annoying ability, and if used correctly can get people out of a hard jam, but if you just focus and keep chasing them down, if you have a build that's meta, you shouldn't have an issue with it. Because you have so much health, your stats should be high enough that by the time they get out of Mist Form, they're not going to be able to do anything against you. And if you're using a typical damage build, yeah, I can see where you'd have a hell of a time trying to take someone out. This is a decent clip. One, because it shows the survivability of the build, how effective it can be. My bear died, but it was because I was using him as Los. And here's real essentially a clip where I make a mistake. I wanted to show where I probably could have lived, but I messed up, and it's going to cost me my health. I want my bear back, and unfortunately, I picked this moment to try and recast it. And even though I thought I got it off, it's just not good enough to bring back my health. I just ended up dying. Made a mistake. Wanted to see, that's typically how I die, something like that, where 3 people or more are facing me down, and either they stun me and I just can't break free fast enough from like leap, or I try and cast my Eternal Guardian while there's 3 people attacking me. I should be using the lightning staff on the front bar for Winterborn and all the other damage, but I don't feel like re-grinding all of those Maelstrom Arena, because when I started grinding it, it didn't drop weapons, and so I did it over 100 times, and now that it drops weapons, and especially now that it drops perfected stuff, I don't feel like going through another 100 times to get right where I was. So I'm going to keep my Fire Staff Winterborn, and maybe in the future, if I do get a lightning one by chance, I'll switch it up, but I really doubt that's going to happen. But as someone pointed out, the lightning staff would also improve the damage on Vateshran, that proc, because apparently it is AoE. I thought of it as single target. I don't know really why, just I guess because Elemental Drain is single target, but it is an AoE. So the lightning staff would even be better for that. The only damage the Fire Staff really adds is Crushing Shock and Zaan, and the shock isn't really there for damage, so it doesn't really add much damage at all. Someone using Los in these capture the flag or area domination type things, I won't chase someone down off of the flag because I want the points. They can sit there and they can be alive until I get the points. Like here, I have the flag, might as well chase them now. But if I don't have the flag, I'm not going to give up the flag just for that reason. Here's like an example of me just running headlong into opponents. They know I'm coming. I don't make any attempt to try to avoid any attacks. It's not a good strategy. It's just something that ends up happening when you have a really strong build and you feel like your opponents don't. Yeah. Again, this isn't like, this is more of a mainstream build, more of the meta build you will more than likely come across, especially as they're getting more and more popular. They have been popular in the EU player base for a while now. I've noticed it's starting to pick up here on the Xbox NA, but not nearly as much. Typically, I'm starting to see the health pools go up into the 30s. From what I understand in the EU, that's still rather low. 40s, maybe higher, would be the more expected amount of health. So battles like this, really long, excruciatingly long battles against players is going to be more commonplace. Good example, though, of where my bear does end up helping quite a bit, dealing those damage. Just a matter of time. Yeah, again, the Crushing Shock and all that doesn't do a heck of a lot of damage, but Winterborn really helps with that. 16 and 2, not bad. Really in the high numbers. Again, like, what is that? Like four ending clips, seeing like 12 and 2, 16 and 2. I feel like even some of those deaths were pretty avoidable, like not casting Eternal Guardian while in the middle of fighting 3 opponents would be a good idea. I've also noticed there's been a problem with the Battleground matchmaking. I have been paired with like a level 29 and a level 49 recently. Really gimps your team when you have someone that is so low, and I feel bad for them because as a level 29, what kind of fun must you have facing nothing but level 50s with all of their monster sets and such? Not entirely sure why that's been going on, but it's been mentioned on the forums, and hopefully an update soon will fix it. Thing is, though, I've never encountered this issue until this last update, so maybe hopefully it'll be fixed. I like how in this clip that Zaan just kind of killed the guy that was running next to me without me even really paying attention to him. I like Winterborn for the snare as well, for like these relic chases. When someone's running, you hit him with the Crushing Shock, and then that Winterborn procs and gives him a snare. It may not be for very long, however, just a split second is all the difference in the world in these games. A good example of procs and bear doing their job. Some of these characters have been mules for most of my time playing ESO, and that's why a lot of them are still being leveled up. Like my Nightblade, for example, I hadn't used it at all until recently, and so he has no Undaunted or anything like that. So that's why in some of these clips you see abilities still getting leveled up. They've been busy holding gear rather than fighting. This is that good Dragon Knight before. I think in this match he only died like 3 times, and I know only two of those deaths came from me. So without me and him going face to face like this, he never would have died. That guy should have interrupted. Unfortunately for him. And with these high health builds like this running relic, once they get it, especially if they use the immovable pot thing, there's just no way to stop them. If you have like 40k health and you use that potion right before you get the relic, there's no stopping you. You have a great rest of your day, guys.